This week's episode of the Stire Sound and the Unsung Heroes is dedicated to the memory of Brian O'Rourke. Brian was the founder of Team Faith, and whether he was serving as a team owner and fielding bikes in arena cross or supercross, or helping serve meals to those in the paddock from riders, mechanics, and others, Brian will be dearly missed in the sport of professional supercross and motocross. Unfortunately, he lost his life on Friday morning. From everyone at the Stire Sound, on behalf of myself, Jack, and all of our listeners, we send our condolences, thoughts, and prayers to the O'Rourke family and everyone who was friends and loved Brian. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to part 4 of the Unsung Heroes of the 2026 season. And of course, in today's edition, we will be talking about the Houston Supercross, the first Triple Crown race of the year, second SMX Next race of the year. It all went down on Saturday night. A fast racetrack, a tricky racetrack, a lot to talk about. I am Trey Stire, your host. Thank you for tuning in once again. We appreciate all of your support. Be sure to spread the word, whether you listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart Radio, YouTube. This show is a companion with my traditional podcast, The Stire Sound. You can find the written versions of the article on treystire.wordpress.com. And I had an interview in written format this week with Heartbeat Hot Sauce Nano Extreme Yamaha powered by Ty Lube's Dominic Thury. So you can head over to the written version and check out the full thing. I will definitely run it down in this show. But without further ado, let's get started. Thanks for the support, everybody. Finishing 21st place in the 450 class, making his first main event of the season. We're going to kick off the show with an interview. Joining me from the McGinley Clinic Privateer Support Program. He's been at this Supercross thing the last few years, grinding, making main events. Houston was his first main event of the year, switching brands, but staying, of course, in the 450 class. Please welcome, from the Sunshine State, from DeLand, Florida, the number 711, Tristan Lane is on the Unsung Heroes. What's up, man? Congrats on your first main event start of the season, and welcome back to the Unsung Heroes.
Trey, I appreciate it, man. That was quite an introduction. I'm hyped up right now.
Glad you are excited and ready to roll. First main event of the year, and obviously Triple Crown's very stressful day for you guys as privateers, especially with the depth of the field. I remember when we were talking in the pits at Anaheim 1, talking about so many of the factory guys and even some of the other racers like Christian Craig, Joey Savacci, for example. So many 450 champions, 450 winners, and even guys who've won 250 championships or a ton of 250 races. You don't really find somebody that doesn't have a win at the supercross or motocross level until you get to like that 19th, 20th range, but you still have guys like Mitchell Harrison who've podiumed in the 250 class and won races in Canada. You have Vince Friese who's won main events in World Supercross and has an arena cross championship. So much talent in the field, but you got to put it in the show on a very stressful day for privateers. You put it in there with a great ride in the LCQ. I know it was only 21, 21, 21 for 21st overall. Shout out to the consistency and making motocross math easy on that part. But take me through your day on Saturday, being able to put it in the show during the Triple Crown and riding out there with all the top guys for the first time this season.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I really appreciate that and the kind words. It is, when you say it like that, it's so crazy, the depth of this field. I feel like we always talk about that, but I'd say that the quality of riders has just gone up, where there's always depth, but man, now these guys are all past winners, champions, like you had mentioned. But yeah, it was a really, really solid day for me. I feel like I've been doing really well in a lot of areas that I struggled last year. For one example, like the whoops have always been something that I've had a love-hate with. I've always loved the whoops, but just for some reason at the races, I've struggled a lot with them. And I think making the switch this year to a Yamaha has helped me in that department. I've got some really good suspension with Enzo, and they've been taking care of me, and that's been helping me get some confidence in the whoops. So that, believe it or not, has been a big change this season, which is, I think, slowly, hopefully correlating to better results. But the starts also, it's just so important. It's like a beating a dead horse, but getting a good start is so imperative to having a main event weekend for me, because the straight reality is, like, it's really hard to go and start 10th, even in the LCQ, and just like mow through, 6 guys, because there's those guys have made main events. I mean, pretty much anyone in that little bubble range that's fighting for it are totally capable of making main events. So yeah, long-winded answer short, it was a really positive day for me, and I'm just really proud to be in that short lineup of so much talent. And coming where I started from with dirt bikes and racing, it's honestly hard to believe. I look at the results, and like you said, 21st, like that normally would have bummed me out. Like in the past, you get a 21st, like dang it, like you're basically almost last in the main event. But this year, I think because of how deep it is, I'm actually really proud of it. I look at it more like it's not so much about the result, it's just the process of the night. Like I'm really proud of the things I did to get there, and then obviously being a triple crown, it's always hard to make those. Yeah, with all that being said, it was a great race for me, and I logged a ton of laps.
I know in your recap on the McGinley Clinic team Instagram story, you were talking about how much the track broke down, and of course, that's a topic of conversation usually every week. But so many tricky rhythm lanes to nail the jumps in. I mean, you had some of the top guys going down. You had Tomac flipping over. You had a bunch of guys going down, hitting the deck. Some 250 guys hit the ground pretty hard and pulled out of the sessions in qualifying. But a very calm, very straightforward night for you. You were saying on that post, you were like, if I just go out there, make sure I jump the safe lines and stay upright, and that's what you did. But talk about some of the track conditions and talk about going out there and racing. I'm sure, like you said, you wanted to fight and do more, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's about just minimizing risk and going out there, playing it safe, and hey, you got your first point on the board of the season.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of guys that have different strategies, right? And for me, I mean, there's no secret. Like when you're a privateer, you only get paid when you're racing. So for me, I'm like, I really want to just log the laps, and most importantly, I want us all to leave healthy. Every rider on the track, right? So I knew this track from the very first lap of practice Saturday morning. I'm like, this is going to be gnarly because they've got these rhythms now where I'm sure you're familiar, Trey, with they call them like the banana, and it's these little platforms that you're jumping off of, but we have to triple. So if you want to make the main event, you're pretty much expected to hit these big gaps off of these little platforms. And this is all new to me, man. I've raced Supercross. I went pro in 2020 in Supercross, and then I've had a couple years where I was injured, but really I still feel like I've done a lot of Supercrosses, but I still somewhat also feel like like a rookie when it comes to 450 Supercross. And this weekend made me feel like a rookie. I was really struggling with the track, and I was honestly afraid to hit all the jumps. But in my first qualifier, I was able to knock out a couple of the big triples, and it gave me some confidence because I was blitzing the whoops. I hit a few of the main decision makers, I'll call them, as far as the rhythms go, where if you were to not hit those jumps, you're about literally like a second off just from that one obstacle. So if you didn't hit all the big triples, you're maybe like 2 seconds off. But also, I think I'm just getting wise enough just to realize, like, look, qualifying is not really one of my strengths, to be honest. And with how deep the field is, I mean, you saw Justin Hill didn't directly qualify, right? And he's a past champion. So I wasn't really going in there like some of the guys, like, oh, I got to qualify straight through. I was more just trying to set myself up to get a good gate pick for the LCQ and try and get some comfort and maybe attack the track better in the race. And that played to my advantage. I think it worked out. But yeah, I mean, it's a crazy way the track breaks down, and the dirt was mixed with sand for press. So I believe that made the dirt really nice, but it also breaks down the lap times for the factory guys were around that 48-second to 50-second range. So you're doing 12-minute races, 3 main events for 450 and 250, and we had futures and we had 50s, I believe. It was just so much track deterioration that for me, I decided to just play it safe. And I said, look, I'm just really happy to be in the main event, and just trying to leave safe and make progress and such. So I chose to do more of, like, I call it like the B line, where the A line's like the factory line that has all the triples, the quads, all that stuff. That's like the qualifying line. I chose more of like a B line where I'm still hitting some sections the same, but maybe the really dangerous ones that I'm not comfortable with. When the track got super deteriorated, I kind of went and resorted to the safer line, which is slower. So with all that being said, yeah, it was frustrating just because the track was so tight and short of a lap time that when you're not hitting the fast line, I feel like I got lapped a lot sooner than I normally would. And that was frustrating because I'm like, you're out there just trying to circulate the track and do your own race within the race. But once you start getting lapped, it creates a whole other, it's a whole other race, because then you're just trying to not, impede the leaders and such. And Yeah, it's always a little difficult to navigate that. So, anyways, yeah, the track broke down pretty bad, and it was a tough night of racing.
You mentioned Justin Hill, of course, a guy who's been on the podium in the 450 class as well, going to the LCQ, very close battle, and it really seems like that 18 to 20 guys like are right there. And I've looked at the results today, and I see Mitchell Harrison, like he's plugging away. He's made all four main events, but he's gone 20,
Yep.
20, 20, 20. So he's right there,
Yep.
like scratching and clawing to get in. But you talked a little bit about your early racing career, maybe not taking exactly the conventional route, and I'm not as familiar with some of your early career stuff, but I definitely remember you in the early part of this decade a few years ago, coming in, scoring points in nationals. I know I've looked at the EracerX page for results, and I'm always looking at stats and stuff when you guys qualify, and I think it's funny, one of the first races listed for you is the WW Ranch MXGP race from back in 2017. But talk a little bit about that because personally I'm unfamiliar with it, so it should be interesting for these listeners. But now you're here, you've been in the Supercross class, as you mentioned, 450 for a while. You've made a lot of main events, logged a lot of points, had a couple national numbers here and there. But just talk about some of your journey of getting to this point where you're a main event level guy who can go out there and on any given weekend, like you said, if you get that start, you can get up there, put it in the show.
It's a long road. I mean, the truth is every one of us out there has a great story, right? We all do. It's a really incredible sport, and it's also very, very difficult. And I know I'm biased, but just some of the injuries and the path to getting to where you can actually race, especially at 450, because most guys you go 250, and you'll hang out there for a long time. But for me, I actually did, I think, four 250 Supercrosses, because they make you start on a 250. You have to make one night show, and then you can race a 450. I did four 250 races, and that was the COVID year, and the whole world shut down. And then I immediately just went right to 450. But when I originally went pro, to answer your question about the MXGP in 2017, I believe I went pro in 2017. I went with my best friend in his van, and we just drove against all the advice of my dad and our friends and family to not go pro and not try it. But we just drove to Southwick, and literally had, like, I bought the bike. I worked construction and was bartending, or I was a server, sorry, at a local sports bar, and saved up some money, bought a bike, and went and just got my pro license and went to Southwick. Actually qualified like 14th because I was in the B practice, and that gave you a really good track. So was able to qualify really well, went pro, ended up not scoring points, but I was like, mid 20s or so. And I thought it was a total win considering where I'd come from. I had zero expectations of even making the motos. And then from then on, I'm like, oh, we're going pro racing. So ended up doing the MXGP, just being I'm from Florida, the Florida National. I thought that was super cool that they had an MXGP race there, a world championship race. So I did everything I could to make it happen. And I somehow got entered into that. And I think I scored some points with it, maybe a 19th in the second moto. So that was pretty cool, getting to race Jeffrey Hurlings and Caroli and just all these greats that I've watched my whole life. So that was really neat. And then really from there, it's just been kind of an uphill battle, to be honest with you. It was like, then I'm like, okay, instead of me just dabbling with racing, I was like, I actually want to do this for a job and like really race for real. And that just takes a whole new set of commitment, because then you're talking Supercross, right? So it's outdoors is almost a different sport in my mind. So trying to learn Supercross when I'm already 21 years old at the time or whatever, it was tough. So I got a really late start. And then I won't bore you with the details, but as far as amateur career goes, it was very, like, almost not even an amateur career, I guess you could call it. I think I went to Loretta's one time in the C class, and I ended up injured. I broke my leg, and I don't even think I did anything there in the C class. And then pretty much never went back and just raced maybe my local Mini-O's national in Gainesville every year if I could. But yeah, went to college and just tried to do the normal school route, and got an associate's degree, and that was enough to make my mom and dad happy enough to let me make my own decisions with racing. And then from then on, I've just been tackling this racing dream. So yeah, fast forwarding it, Supercross is now like the future of the sport, I believe, right? So it's like there's a little bit more money in it. It's a little bit more practical in the sense of you can race like I have one motorcycle, just one Yamaha 450, and I practice on it, race on it, and the thing's pretty competitive, obviously enough to even make a main event. It really is stock for the most part. So that's a really cool feature of Supercross, in my opinion, and especially a 450 class. So I've kind of found my little spot where I'm really happy. Obviously, I'm always looking for more support and trying to raise my level every year. But for the most part, it's been awesome and just a total dream to make main events. That was really not something that I ever thought I would be capable of doing. I was always hopeful I could, but where I grew up and my upbringing with riding and racing, I didn't really see that in our future. But so to do it is really just a dream, and I'm just so excited. And honestly, every weekend I just look forward to being under the lights. It's so cool.
You mentioned a little bit earlier about hopping on board the Yamaha this year and feeling more comfortable in the whoops. For those who followed your career, they would probably know that you've been a KTM guy for a long time, and there were even a couple years where you were on the gas machine, so very familiar, very similar bikes with the steel frame. But now you're a part of the Blue Crew, and of course, a lot of Yamaha guys out there, mainly in the 250 class, holding it down in the 450 class. You're switching to Blue Crew this year. Definitely a big change for you. You mentioned feeling a little bit more comfortable with suspension wise. What made you decide to move away from KTM after so many years of racing with the Orange brand, and what led you to go down the Yamaha route?
Yeah, so the KTM's a great bike, and to be honest with you, I think a lot of the people listening to this will make sense. It's really just it was common sense. I'd bought a KTM, and then I'd gotten some help from a guy named Donald Davis in the Jacksonville area, and I rode with his son Landon, and Donald started sponsoring me and kind of helped me out with some bikes and stuff. And he always just stayed KTM because his son rode a KTM, and I'd been on an orange bike, so we're like, oh, we'll just ride KTM's, and then once you accrue enough parts and wheels and sprockets and bolts, you just sort of it kind of just like before you know it, you're bleeding orange for life. It's like hard to get away from them just because the parts alone, it takes such a village to get what you need to go racing. So that kind of kept me on an orange bike. But I always had this vision of like, man, I want to try something different just for fun, just to break up the monotony a bit and see a different color and see if maybe go into a aluminum frame versus the steel frame that I'd rode for so long would help me a bit. And suspension's a really pivotal part of the sport, as you know, Trey. Like, I'm learning that having a good setup, a lot of it for me is just having a comfortable suspension package that I feel can take the hits, the big jumps, blitz the loops, but also give you some comfort to where you can corner. And I think that in the beginning of my career with Supercross, I didn't know how to set up a bike, or I didn't know what to tell a suspension tech. I had some good people helping me, but I don't think I was good enough as a test rider to even get my bike in a good window. So I'm really proud of the Yamaha and the package that I've been able to put together with, like I said, it's a shoestring budget, but I feel like my bike is pretty solid considering it's, like I said, it's just it's a bike that you could go buy off the showroom floor and race, with the exception of some cool suspension parts. So yeah, I'm thinking the Yamaha's been a good fit for me, and there's obviously pros and cons to it as well. But so far, the biggest things that stand out to me is I feel more confident in the whoops, and I think that that's definitely the chassis. But also, I put in a big effort this off season to improve in that area. And then also, I think the starts. I seem to start better on this bike, and I know I haven't, really gotten any solid results start wise. Like, I haven't whole shot any heats or LCQs yet, but I feel like I'm consistently a bit better on the starts on this one, and that excites me.
I saw on Instagram you with the laptop on the desk. Just seemed like the normal standard working man. I know Josh Cartwright gets spotlighted a lot for this being a full-time employee of a job doing some IT stuff, and then he races on the weekend. I didn't know this was a part of your program as well, and I know Scott Meshy does it a little bit as well, your teammate over at the McGinley Clinic crew. But talk a little bit about balancing some of that, as you mentioned, with the smaller budgets and trying to get enough sponsorship to go racing. And then there are people like you and some of these other racers out there who might be working a 9 to 5 or something close to that, where you can hop on, make some money during the week, and then go racing on the weekend and be flexible with that.
Right. Yeah, that's the secret, is just trying to be a little bit more comfortable, because it's a tough sport. I mean, it's hard for anyone in the world these days making a living. It can be difficult, but dirt bike world is crazy, because when you're a privateer, like I mentioned earlier, when you're racing and you're performing, and especially if you're in the main events and such, that can pay half decent. You can actually do somewhat decent, and you're racing, 6 months out of the year if you're a Supercross guy, and if you have your contingency set up well and you're sponsorship kicking in to help cover stuff, it can be a nice little life for, for someone that's just riding a dirt bike. So I did that for a long time and I love it. But the thing is, I think this year I'm running my program pretty much 100% by myself. So that means that just my wife and I, we're paying for, everything. And I have some people helping me, of course, which is super huge and crucial. But that being said, I've just had to kind of make up the difference a little bit. And this past summer, I decided to take off from the nationals, and I didn't end up racing. So I became a realtor about a year ago, I want to say. And my mom's been a realtor for about 35 years. And she actually owns a brokerage now in Florida called Lane and Associates Florida. So when I wasn't racing, she's like, "You're coming to work with me." So I was busy all summer doing that and learning the ropes of real estate. And now I'm kind of just incorporating it into my life. And I like to think I'm a racer that also will do anything that he has to do to go racing, So if it means I need to go and contribute and work real estate and sell some houses and such to help fund my program, I will do that. So yeah, when I get home from I got home from Texas on Sunday night, and then Monday morning we have a couple of listings right now that we're buttoning up and hopefully going to be closing on here shortly. So I was busy at work with my mom getting things straightened out, and did some showings today actually. So I've been super busy and pretty funny. It makes me appreciate dirt bikes, but I thought that was funny. My mom tagged me on Instagram and it just cracked me up because I'm like, this isn't quite as glamorous as racing Supercross under the lights is, but it's still cool.
Nick Fratzvor used to do that some back in the day. He's more local from Maryland
Yeah,
over here, but he was
I'm
a
familiar. Yeah,
realty
good
guy,
guy.
realtor
Yes.
guy, and then he would go qualify at High Point or Budds Creek or some of the local rounds. He would go put her in the show.
Yep.
But going on your year two with the McGinley Clinic Privateer Support Program team, and I'm sure people listening might think, well, this is just turning into McGinley Clinic promotion because I had Crockett Myers on last week. Now I have
Yep.
you on this week. Hey, you guys are putting it in the show, though. I always like to say, if you put it in the show, you're going to get coverage from me. But year two of the program, John Ayers helping run everything. Of course, you were on it last year as well and got to experience working with those guys and seeing how things work. How are we feeling once again back with the program? And I'm sure year two, maybe some things that the team overall learned a little bit and were able to step up with help for you guys this year.
Yeah, definitely. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of some cool programs over the years, and I've met a lot of awesome people. And the number one thing that this sport will teach you is that everyone involved comes from a good place, right? They all want to help. They all are passionate. We're all fans, right? And even if you're not the racer yourself, it's fun to be a part of this awesome industry. And then we're all just trying to find a way to fit in, right? So one thing that I really give a lot of credit to the McGinley Clinic Privateer Support Program is just they entered last year with year one and just crushed it. Like it was the most seamless transition to running a supercross and motocross professional team I've ever seen. It was like John Ayers, I give a lot of credit to John. It's his team and he started this whole thing, but he has partnered with the McGinley Clinic with Joe McGinley, and they've been great partners. But I think John, with his background and the things that he's already been in the industry for so long, he just made a lot of smart moves. He kind of, the way I like to put it is he has all the things that are necessary and then none of the stuff that's not. So he's very particular about like, hey, this will help you guys. Like we'll do it this, or like, hey, what can I do that will help you guys be more comfortable at the races? And I feel like it's always been about helping us at the end of the day, which is why I believe it's been so successful because he's truly trying to help. He's not just out there trying to make a bunch of money, which of course I hope he does because he deserves it. But yeah, it's a hauling service, but also a team at the same deal. So it helps guys like me be able to go race and have a nice pit set up and get our motorcycle to all the rounds and, be pitted out of a semi and the fans love it. And it's a really professional deal. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm honestly super happy with where I'm at, and to be on the second year here is really cool. I feel like I already know the personnel of the team, and obviously John and Joe McGinley, I know them really good now, and it just feels good when I have a good race and I can, a small little thank you for all the support that they've given me. It makes me feel good to be able to put the bike in the main event. Obviously Crockett, you mentioned him, he's been crushing it. I'm super excited to be his teammate this year, and I'm stoked to see him doing so well. So to be able to have two bikes in the main event this weekend was really cool for the team.
One last thing before we wrap up here. Of course, some of you guys that are out there grinding every week in the 450 LCQ, you might not be earning main event points if you don't qualify, but of course, Steve Mathis usually has the PulpMX LCQ Challenge race every year. I know you've been on the podium of that race in the past, and for you guys, that's huge for your programs, of course, being able to have some kind of big money race at the end of the year, and especially now with the wild formats, with the staggered restart, with everybody in a reverse order from the first race. A lot of chaos, but a lot of fun to watch, and it goes to a great cause seeing all of you guys be able to race for a little bit of an increased purse. But this year, you're probably, if you keep going, I'm sure you're going to be in some more main events, but probably also going to be in the LCQ Challenge with so many people out there. What are those races like in terms of stress level? I mean, obviously not for a championship, but you have so many guys out there going for a nice chunk of change. I'm sure it's a little bit stressful, but talk a little bit about some of those races because you've had success there in the past. Third place, I think, a couple years ago, and what a way to reward some of you guys for going out there, grinding, putting in the work, and then being able to earn a little bit more money at the end of the season thanks to Yamaha and all of the fans who help donate and buy raffle tickets for that program.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Steve Mathis. He's really created a funny little thing he's got here, and it started out hilarious, but then you look at the money he's giving out, and it's like that is serious cash. I mean, he's single-handedly helping a lot of us privateers, make it make a little bit more sense. There's a lot of guys that would be lying to you if they said that they're not trying to, dodge a couple mains to make sure they're in that race, right? So it's pretty funny, but yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Steve's a good dude, and I think it's funny because I'm a fan of the show, and a lot of what Steve does is just entertainment, right? He's an entertainer. He loves the controversy. So what I think is hilarious is the race is set up exactly for that. It's essentially just entertainment. And he's like, look, I'm going to help you guys. I'm going to give you guys as much money as I can. I'm going to fundraise everything we can do to help you guys, but it's going to be entertainment, chaos, wild, worth watching. So I, as a racer, I'm trying to take a standpoint of like, look, this is all just extra on top. Like we're not banking on this every year, but when it comes around, you're like, oh my gosh, there is all this money on the line. I try to just go into it like, look, I'm going to just take it as it comes. I know it's going to be chaos, kind of lean into it a bit and just have fun. Try to be safe, of course, because it's very sketchy sometimes, some years. But yeah, the year that I land on the podium, it was hilarious because I went in there thinking I had this big plan. I'm like, okay, I'm going to finish really far up in the first moto and then just kind of see where I'm at in the second moto because they stagger the riders, I believe, like you said. And I ended up crashing like the first lap. So my plan just went right out the window. And then it actually all worked out still because the second moto I did really well and landed on the box with some insane number score that somehow the math was mathing for me. So yeah, it's a really crazy, chaotic race, but I think it's really neat what he's doing. And honestly, the way I look at it is just, like I said, if it can work out and you have a great race and you make a bunch of money, awesome. If not, I think every single person on the gate still comes away with some money and it helps a lot. And it gives us a little bit of extra track time. And, I just kind of know my place now. I'm like, look, sometimes it goes great. Sometimes it doesn't. But more importantly, it's just fun to be a part of. And I'm very appreciative for his help because I know there's a lot of people that, that want to help. And Steve's one of those guys, but he's found a way to actually do something tangible, and it's become a yearly thing now, so it's pretty neat.
I just looked back and found your scores 13-3 for third overall, so shout out to that one. I know Josh Hill
Love
went
that.
210 for the win, so I mean, craziness all
Oh
over
my,
the board. It was
that's so
a
funny.
wild year, but Tristan Lane on the Unsung Heroes, thank you once again for the time. Before we wrap up today, would you like to give a shout out to anybody, maybe plug some social media stuff for people to be able to follow you? Any last thoughts here before we conclude, and thank yous?
Yeah, thank you very much. And of course, yeah, check me out on Tristan Lane MX on Instagram. But I have so many awesome sponsors, but I have a lot of personal friends and family helping me out too. Massive shout out to Russell Bonanza with the Blue Butterfly House of Nosara, Costa Rica, a really unique sponsor that's been helping me this season. John Ayers, I mean, like I said, with the Privateer Support Program, huge help for me. Mark Shields of Shields Contracting, Raymond Whitley with Whitley's Heating and Air. I've got all these people that are local in my area that make it happen for me and are helping kind of fund me a little bit to get me to these races. And I couldn't do it without those guys. But another massive shout out to my mechanic, Andrew. He's been helping me a ton this season. And my amazing wife, Sydney, she'll be happy I'm giving her a plug. But the truth is I couldn't do all this without her. She's signed up for this wildlife. And and of course all the amazing people that make racing possible for me. But seriously, the support I get, I'm a privateer and it's a struggle for sure, but I have an awesome crew of people that are rooting for me every weekend. And also shout out to you, Trey. I thank you very much for getting in touch with me and giving us a little publicity for a good weekend.
Of course, man. Thank you. As I mentioned, best of luck the rest of the season. Go put her in the top 22 a few more times the rest of this year. Best of luck out there, and I hope to see you around again this season.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much.
Once again, that was Tristan Lane on the Unsung Heroes. Thank you to Tristan for the time, and without further ado, we'll hop right into the 250 West Division. Once again, Maximus Voland. I'm starting to sound like a broken record, I know, but Voland was the top non-factory racer in the 250 class on Saturday night. Fourth place, he started to inch up a little bit. Fifth at Anaheim 2, fourth at Houston. He just keeps creeping closer and closer to that podium, and he ripped a couple of great starts this weekend. Got out front in the top two out of the three races on Saturday night, including leading 4 laps in the third race. Of course, Maximus hasn't led any laps since the 2023 season. He does have a couple heat race victories since then, but overall, other than sliding through the pack a bit late, which I think part of that was getting caught by surprise after Max Anstey passed him, then both of the Pro Circuit Kawasaki guys passed him, and he went from running in the top two all race to all of a sudden shuffled back to the fourth position. But needless to say, it was a solid run for Maximus. P4 overall, like I said, getting closer to the podium. And he beat 2 out of the 3 star Yamaha guys in the overall results. So more bragging rights for the Club MX crew. The next privateer on our list, it's his teammate, Hunter Yoder. No surprise again, matching his finish from Anaheim 2. And Hunter was one of the biggest movers of the first race. Of course, you had that pile up with Max Anstey, some other racers involved. Hunter got held up a little bit, not a very good start before that, but then he charged forward from 16th to 8th. He gained 8 positions during the race. A great performance from Hunter, then 7-7 to end the night. 7th overall. He was also ahead of one of the Star Yamaha guys. He finished ahead of Michael Mosman, who finished in 8th position overall. Yoder P7, and he was the beneficiary of some sportsmanship from Hayden Deegan in qualifying. Yoder tipped over in a corner, bike landed on top of him. Hayden stopped his machine, helped the flagger get the bike off of Hunter. Of course, those guys both grew up together in Southern California, so they've been familiar with each other for a long time. But another strong top 10 finish for Hunter Yoder on the number 60. Another racer matching their career best finish, 9th place on the Toyota Redlands Bar X Yamaha, Parker Ross. Quiet night for the number 40, but a solid one nonetheless. He went 9-8-9, and he's now in a three-way tie for 8th in points. Parker, man, he's been so solid since turning pro. And of course, last year at Glendale, the opening Triple Crown round of the season, is when he set that first 9th place finish, now matching it, and with a little bit more consistency in this year's first Triple Crown round. Great to see from him. Then rounding out the top 10, Carson Mumford on the AEO Power Sports KTM. Carson could have been a little bit higher in the order, but had a tip over, some kind of mistake in the final moto, but still another top 10. That's his second in a row, gaining some momentum. He showed, I think, the most speed he's shown all year, perhaps during the races, had some good starts. I thought the Triple Crown format would showcase Carson's skills a little bit more, and it did for most of the night. Still, 10th place finish. The AEO boys, another top 10, and now they are headed to their home race in Glendale this weekend. Speaking of AEO, talking about one of their former riders now who ended the night in 11th place. He's now aboard the Grindstone Friesen Group Kawasaki team. Josh Varese, P11, top 10 last weekend, now 11th place this weekend. And he was another guy who was making a lot of passes in the first race of the night. Went from 20th to 13th, gaining some spots from that bowl corner crash. And he just kept getting a little better throughout the night. And that's what you want. Even if it's marginal improvement, it's still improvement He went from 13th to 12th in the second race to 11th in the final race, and 11th place overall was his highest finish in a Triple Crown race in almost 4 years. He got a top 10 at St. Louis 2022, finished 8th. Of course, that was the year he was competing with support from Husqvarna on his own before he joined the AEO team. But Josh Faries, man, he's solid. I say it every week. He's one of the most reliable and dependable guys in the 250 West class, and I think the Grindstone teams made one of the smartest decisions of the offseason by any team, regardless of whether they are privateer or factory. It was a great move to get Josh aboard that program and aboard the Kawasaki. 12th place this weekend at Houston was Anthony Bourdon on the Partzilla PRMX Kawasaki. A lot better after missing the show at Anaheim, too. Qualified 16th, still not quite in his usual speed range, but 12, 13, 12 for 12th overall. Not too bad, all things considered, and a great rebound from last weekend. 13th place, Lux Turner, still going through some wrist pain, still not at 100%. A little bit better with shorter races. He went 11:10 in the first couple, but then final moto had a mistake, went down. I'm excited to see what Lux is going to do at the tail end of the season. Unfortunately for him, the West Coast Series this year is pretty much back to back to back. The last few years, we had a couple breaks in there. They would run 3 or 4 races, then the East guys would run a couple, then they'd run one more. Now, with 6 straight to start the year, most of all of their rounds are immediately. But, later in the year, if he's able to get healed up, a round like Denver could prove very good for Turner. Hopefully, we can see him back to 100% soon, but he's still logging points. He's still logging laps, still showing that he belongs, even if he's not 100%. Behind him, it was his former teammate, another one of the AEO Powersports KTM guys. So many AEO connections here in this little stretch of the field. Avery Long, the second-year pro on the number 57 machine. He was one of the biggest gainers in the second qualifying session. It was a weird Q1 for Long, usually a top 10, top 15 level guy in speed. He was 28th after the first session, uncharacteristic, but he hopped back into the top 18. Got off to a good start in the first race of the night, but unfortunately went down, had a crash, and ended up falling a couple laps down behind the field. He went 11:10 later in the night, so a lot better results to end the evening. A nice rebound considering he started the night in 21st, a couple laps down, but I'm sure Avery Long looking for a little bit more than a 14th place effort. 15th place. I mentioned him at the top of the show. I got to speak with him a little bit on Sunday afternoon. The German racer, Dominic Thury, for the Heartbeat Hot Sauce Nano Extreme Yamaha team powered by Ty Lube, aka Team Solitaire. Last year he was aboard his own effort. This year returning back to Team Solitaire. And I talked to him about the weekend, and of course, a lot of privateer racers are pretty stressed during Triple Crown races. They know they have to execute in qualifying or they have to put in an incredible LCQ effort to even get into the show. Thury told me, he said, Triple Crowns are always stressful. I am a racer not particularly good at throwing down a single lap, so I struggled a bit with traffic. I never had one solid lap and came up just short of making it through. And he was right because he was 20th place, only 3/10 outside of the top 18. Just a small little mistake somewhere or a small little bobble could have cost him a chance of transferring automatically, but he took care of business in the LCQ. Stayed composed, solid ride, took his second career LCQ win and his first since the Arlington residency in 2021. He entered the night with the 18th gate pick instead of the 19th. We will talk about that a little bit later in this episode, but he said in the first two mains I had decent starts but fumbled a bit in the middle. In the second main, I thought I was getting lapped by Michael Moseman until I realized on the last lap that he was behind me. Thury said I tried to hold him off and raced him to the finish line but lost the spot. In the last main, I had a bad start and couldn't really get going. The track was good and it had some big rhythms for the 250 where you had to be perfect to make it. Once the track broke down, and it did quite a lot, it was so hard to do those sections. He told me it was a really fun racetrack, but definitely tricky at the end of the night with so many ruts and so many tricky conditions. Back with the Team Solitaire organization, Thury told me that He first returned to the team at the beginning of December and said that it was a bit short notice, but his experience on Yamaha made things pretty easy. He said, "It's nice to be back with them, and I enjoy racing that bike. I didn't really need to test much because they knew what I wanted, and I knew how the bike feels. Plus, the Yamaha is already a great base to start off with." And then, of course, I had to ask Thury about his furry friend, Bailey, Vlog Dog Bailey, whatever you want to call him. He's joking around with me. He's like, they don't even want an autograph from me, all the people that come to the solitaire truck. He's like, they just want to see Bailey and pet him and say hello. Thury told me that Bailey will be at all of the 250 West races that Thury will be competing at. So if you go to the solitaire truck, you can probably find him. He said that 2 rounds last year he tried to leave Bailey at home and not take him with him, but he rode terrible. So Bailey will be at every race you see the number 964 this year. And you can follow him at Nick Thury, NIQUETHURY, on Instagram if you want to look more into his program, the number 964. Two top 15 finishes in a row, a nice rebound after missing the first couple main events of the year, and I look forward to seeing more from Dominic throughout the year. He's been a solid racer the past couple years, really since he came to America with the Club MX team. So it'll be interesting to see if he continues to improve. Now back to 16th. It's another international racer on the SLR Honda, Matty Jorgensen. It was another race, some more LCQ heroics, although a bit more aggressive. He ran Preston Massiangelo wide for the final spot in Anaheim, too. This weekend, he was making contact. Took Revan Gordon down, had to go off the side of the track. Then, when he regrouped, Lane Shaw was there. They battled for position, and then I think it was 3 laps to go. Ran Shaw wide, boom, clipped his front wheel a little bit, and Shaw was down and out. But Jorgensen was in the main event. 3 out of 4 so far for the Dane, and he was 16th overall, going 15, 17, 14. Just behind him, his teammate, Justin Rodbell, winner of Rodbell, continuing to progress. 17th overall, 13th in the final moto. First Triple Crown start for Justin Rodbell since St. Louis 2022. That would have been in the 450 class when he was splitting time between coasts for the PRMX Kawasaki team at the time. He rode the 250 on the west, 450 on the east. 5 more points to his season total. Behind the SLR boys in 18th position, our guy Crockett Myers. If you missed last week's episode, I highly recommend going back and at least checking out the interview with Crockett. What a great interview. He's definitely an open book. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's a great storyteller at that. He told me this weekend that he was stoked with the weekend, but wasn't stoked on how he was riding. He said he was basically riding like an idiot out there, and he was like, I just couldn't work my way in some of those lines and get them to work like I wanted them to. But regardless, as I like to say, a bad main event is better than a good night of not qualifying. So 18th overall for Crockett Myers aboard his Suzuki. Behind him, his buddy Aiden Shive on the HBI Racing, Cameron Construction, KTM, and Aiden was the only guy who scored a top 18 qualifying spot right out of the 250B group all day. From the first session, he would have been in, and then after the second session, he was still able to secure a spot. Great performance in qualifying for Aiden. 19th overall. I know he wanted a little bit more during the night show, but he was still able to get in to his first Triple Crown start. Did unfortunately receive a penalty in the final moto, apparently cut the track at some point, was docked from 21st to 22nd, so a little bit of a bad ending to the night. But no mechanical gremlins after some issues with the engine in Anaheim, too. 20th place, Hunter Schlosser, 3 for 4. All of this stretch of guys, man. Jorgensen is 3 for 4. Rodbell 3 for 4. Myers 3 for 4. Shive 3 for 4. And so is Hunter Schlosser. And this is 3 straight for the El Paso, Texas native aboard his Next Level Racing, Redline Oil, Jones Power Sports, Honda. This is the second longest streak of Hunter's career. 4 straight was his best run of consecutive main events during the 2021 season. We'll see this weekend in Glendale if Hunter can equal that mark, but he's been pretty solid qualifying. And of course, now he is back in the main event picture, switching back to the 250 division. We'll see if he can keep the ball rolling into Glendale. Now, 21st position. It was a first career main event for Chehanan, Illinois' Keegan Rally, and it wasn't the most conventional way to do it, but guess what? He got in and he earned a spot on the gate. Oddly enough, some deja vu from last year. If you remember, and I don't expect you to because this is a little bit of obscure knowledge, but last year during the Triple Crown at Glendale, the first Triple Crown race, Marshall Welton finished fifth in the LCQ. Looked like he was going home. He was going to be watching from the crowd that night. But Drew Adams got injured during qualifying, withdrew from the evening, and Marshall, who finished fifth in the LCQ, was promoted into the night show, into the Triple Crown races because of another racer withdrawing. Saturday night, Houston, Texas, first Triple Crown race of the year. Keegan Rally for the same team for, of course, last year it was the Gizmo Mods Rock River Power Sports Yamaha team. This year, just simply known as Gizmo Racing, with the Gizmo Mods side taking control of the team. But Keegan, fifth in the LCQ, one spot shy of his first career main event. But Dylan Schwartz withdraws because of his hard practice crash. I'm recording this Monday evening. Still no update as of now on Dylan's condition. But who gets promoted in? Another rider from the same team, and it was Keegan's first career main event. So congratulations to the number 900. He was 21st overall on the night. Not a crazy result, but guess what? He got to live out a dream and participate in a main event. I'm sure Keegan is over the moon, and he's the first Gizmo Racing rider to qualify for a main event this year. Freddie Noren, his much more experienced teammate on the 450, 0 for 4 so far for Fast Freddy. Not a great start to the year, of course. Freddy, known more as an outdoor specialist, but still has a lot of supercross experience, a lot of supercross starts, and hopefully we will see him in a main event soon. But awesome to see Keegan's first career start in the main events. 22nd place, your final finisher from the 250 class. Representing Next Level Racing as well, they've now put 3 out of their 4 riders in the show this year. For the first time since Anaheim 2 in January of 2024, Slade Varola was in the main event, the Simi Valley, California native. He is aboard a Yamaha for the Next Level Racing team, so all 3 brands represented for Next Level. Schlosser on a Honda, Massiangelo on a Gas at San Diego, now Varola on the Yamaha, putting it in the show. Got out front early in the LCQ, ended up losing some spots late, but held it together for 4th place, and even if he would have slipped back to 5th, of course he would have been in. But Slade Varola breaking a 2-year drought, returning to the main event. Unfortunately for him, he was last place, so he doesn't have a point to show for it. But guess what? He's back in the main event. A big step forward for Slade, and he's been racing with a fractured ankle after a, I don't want to say collision because it wasn't on a crash. It wasn't on any form of contact. It was just from clipping a jump a little bit, a hard landing, and it messed up his ankle a little bit. So Varola, another guy who's been riding at less than 100%, but valiantly put it into the show this weekend. Congrats to Slade for getting back into the main event. And now we will shift into the SMX Next class and some solid results by some non-factory guys. It was once again, stop this if you've heard this one before, Club MX Yamaha leading the charge for non-factory teams in SMX Next. Who was it? Jessen Turner. Surprise, surprise. 4th place for Jessen. He's always solid. He had a battle late with Jeremy Fapani, the former Orange Brigade KTM amateur, and I'm going to shout out Jeremy as well. 5th place, his best SMX Next run of any type so far. And I think a lot of Jeremy's improvement this year has been from getting some arena cross reps. He was running some of the early AMA arena cross rounds. I know he was at the Huntington Beach race, raced a couple of others. So 5th place for the number 2. He's still backed by Monster Army by 7. Great runs for Jessen and for Jeremy. A little bit further back, Seth Dennis, one of the biggest improvers in his second SMX Next start. For Future MX Yamaha, 13th last week at Anaheim, 7th in Houston. Big step forward for Seth, a lot better, and he climbed from 13th on the opening lap to 7th place, gained 6 positions throughout the race. He was the biggest mover through the field. A great run for the number 93 and a step forward. Talking about Yamaha racers, 7 out of the 10 top finishers were on Yamahas, including 8th place finisher Cole Timbo for the Toyota Redlands Bar X Yamaha team. I like to look at lap times from occasion, and I like to look at the little lap time consistency stat. And what it means is who can run the best laps, who can run the most laps without having a ton of variation, who can string together consistent lap times, whether they're fast or whether they're solid but nothing crazy, but put them together and be consistent. Who had the highest consistency rating in SMX Next? Cole Timbo, 98.5% consistency rating, and he was able to secure another top 10. He was top 10 at Anaheim. He is now 3 for 3 in his Supercross SMX Next starts, scoring a top 10. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with the 10th place finisher from the SMX Next class, someone who has a lot of experience in AMA Arena Cross, now getting his feet wet in stadiums of Supercross. Joining me today from the great state of Washington, the number 480 Yamaha backed by Carl's Towing and M9 suspension. Ashton Oudman, what's up, man? Congrats on the top 10 the other night, and you're getting your feet wet with some of these Supercross events. How's it going so far?
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's going good. You know, the bigger stadiums are definitely sick for sure. All the fans and everything like that. And yeah, just getting my feet wet. I've only been on Supercross for a couple of months now, so it's still new to me, but I am enjoying the heck out of the process.
So we'll hop into things. As I mentioned, 10th place, and then you had a top 15 at the SMX Next race in Anaheim. Solid start for you. You had a couple national starts as well last year. Some of these other guys you've been racing against, of course, they have factory programs, whether they're Team Green, Star Yamaha, Triumph has some people out there, plus some other organizations like Club MX and Bar X. You're doing things on your own out there. So before we hop into your weekend and go through it, talk a little bit about putting together your own program, trying to find places to ride and to get better at Supercross while you don't have the benefits of having one of these larger teams backing you. And
Yeah. So, it started off kind of last year. I kept getting hurt through arena cross and everything like that, and I was like, man, if I want to keep doing this, I got to get somewhere and like just train, build my muscle, get better technique, everything like that. So I went back to work, construction, and I just saved up as much money as I could throughout the summer to come here in November with hopes of getting into the SMX Next races. I didn't even know if I'd be able to get into them because it's so hard to get into these things. So saved up as much money as I could, and then luckily I had Devin Harriman help me out with a canopy, and I got a lot of sponsors to help me with that canopy. I put their logos on it, so that travels to all the races with me. And so with my work and then all of the sponsorship help, I was able to come down here to South Carolina, Club MX in November, and rode some outdoors, decided to just wing it at Minios, and I ended up getting a third place in 450 Pro Sport, sixth place in 250 Pro Sport. And so I was pumped on that. I mean, if you would have told me that I'd get those results a year ago, I wouldn't have believed you. So that kind of kicked everything off. Then I decided to go to AZ Open right after that. Got a second there, I think, and fourth due to a flat tire. But I ended up getting all my SX points through those two races. So I was stoked on that. And then, yeah, I came back here to Club MX and started riding Supercross for the first time about mid-December. And I still had hopes of getting into these SMX Next races just to kind of get my feet wet before I just hopped right into East Coast. But I hadn't heard anything from them until about 2 weeks before A2. Harv Whipple called me up and he said, hey, we got a spot open with the help of Daniel Blair. Can't thank that guy enough. he's a good coach, and he helped me get into these SMX Next races. So shout out to him. And I decided to just road trip it over to the West Coast, and I really enjoyed my time out there. Anaheim was sick. I mean, racing in front of all those fans was unbelievable, and I was a little bummed with my result, but it's been going good. Back here at Club MX, it's a little cold right now, but yeah, I'm just stoked that I worked my ass off to come out here, and it's paying off so far. All the glory to God, and I'm stoked to keep it going.
Talk a little bit about your night at Houston. Of course, you guys are able to compete on these tracks in front of the fans, the same tracks that the pros ride, but a lot of times it seems like you get some chewed up terrain out there. You guys were put in the middle of the second and third races for the pro guys. Talk a little bit about how the track was for you guys. It seems like it was a little bit better than at Anaheim, but just talk about your day overall, your qualifying, and then of course in the race, like I mentioned, P10 overall, not too bad, and there was a lot of blue in the top 10, so you were helping represent for Yamaha out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, the track was definitely better Houston than Anaheim. Anaheim, we pretty much had track every time we got on it because we got on it right before track prep every time. So I think they kind of like realized that and made it a little better for Houston. Our free practice was really good. The dirt was, I mean, all time. And then our first qualifier, we had a fresh track. So I kind of knew that's where the fast times were going to come from. And I was able to get a couple of the big rhythms for my fast lap. So I was proud of that. And then, yeah, the second qualifier, man, the track was destroyed once again. And I just kind of knew, like, no fast laps, just kind of try to find race lines. And we ended up having 2 red flags because we're still trying to send it. So for the main, the track wasn't terrible. I mean, there's still quite a few ruts in all the corners, which made all the big rhythms really hard to hit. But I don't know. It was improvements from Anaheim, so I'm happy with that. And yeah, I'm happy to put it in the top 10. That's at least where I want to be. I know I'm capable of so much more. I just got to get more seat time on this Supercross stuff. It's still pretty new to me. And yeah, I got suspension. Club helped me out with some suspension, and that's been awesome so far. So I'm really happy with that. And hopefully I can get into Daytona. I still don't know if I'm going to get into the rest of these because they're so hard to get into, but I'd really like to be somewhere farther inside that top 10 for the next round. And yeah, we'll just keep building. Obviously, Yamaha is the dominant bike for us. I think 7 out of the top 10 or 6 of us or something are on Yamaha, so that's pretty cool to see.
Last year, of course, I've mentioned it in the show last week and now this week. Some AMA Arena Cross experience for you last year. You were able to get in those main events, to be able to race against some of those guys like Ryan Brees, Vince Friese, Austin Politelli, guys like that, Kyle Peters as well. Now you're translating that into SMX Next and racing, trying to secure your spot in the sport for the future. How much did racing those Arena Cross rounds last year help you out with racecraft and being able to figure out Supercross a little early? Because as you've mentioned, you're still pretty new to Supercross, but I feel like Arena Cross and with the turning, even though they're short rhythm lanes, of course you have big whoops usually in Arena Cross. How much were those races able to help you start to build that foundation of Supercross once you started training on Supercross level tracks?
It did definitely help. I mean, like you said, the arenas are a bit smaller, but those Tinker Arena Crosses last year were actually built really well. Like some of the rhythms did replicate a Supercross rhythm lane, and the berms are pretty much the same. I mean, they're a little tighter, but that did help me out a lot. I think I didn't feel completely like a fish out of water when I hopped on Supercross. So I also like kind of grew up racing Arena Cross. We have a little series WHR Arena Cross up in the Pacific Northwest in Washington, and I grew up doing that. So I think my riding style kind of has always tailored the indoor atmosphere more than the outdoors. And so I've always wanted to get on Supercross. The whole racecraft thing, it really goes hand in hand too. I mean, those are some of the best guys in the business at Arena Cross. So that's about as aggressive as it gets. And I might be one of the oldest riders in the SMX Next class. I'm 20, so I'm kind of a late bloomer, I guess you could say. I never really traveled out of state riding until I was on big bikes, and then here at Club MX like 2 3 months ago, this is the first time I've ever been trained by anyone or been to a training facility or anything like that. So I think that arena cross did really help my racing skills and supercross for sure. So
You talked a little bit about Daytona SMX Next, and of course Daytona, another one of the crown jewels of the sport, another round that everybody dreams of competing at. You just were at Angel Stadium, now moving to Daytona if you can possibly get into it. For the rest of Supercross, are you just trying to complete the year in SMX Next and see where you stack up before going full-time pro next year? Or is there a chance you jump into the 250 East Series if you have the chance?
yeah, ideally, I would like to stay in the SMX next class, just because I think I can get some more eyes on me with being inside the top 10 rather than just kind of being another guy trying to make a main event in the 250 East class. So my goal is to hit those 250 or yeah SMX next races, the rest of them. But I guess if I don't hear back from them and it's getting close to Arlington or a couple of East Coast rounds, I might go do those if it's looking like I won't get into the next classes. But I really would like to get into those next classes, and I think I'm just going to keep getting better each round, just getting more comfortable with the stadium and everything like that.
You had a couple national starts last year as well, and I know your first one was at Hangtown, and that was the triple digit heat day, shortened motos, and then of course Washougal as well, your home track. Talk a little bit about the experience there. Obviously, as you mentioned, not full-time pro yet, but you were still able to go out there, get your feet wet in the pro motocross atmosphere, and you got in the show and got to compete. You were in the 450 class as well, so you were out there with the big boys, with Jet, with Tomac, with Chase Sexton. Talk a little bit about that experience and what are your plans for the summer this year?
Yeah, so I was actually fortunate enough to get my outdoor license in 2023 while I was still in high school, and I decided to go to Hangtown in 23, and I ended up making it in my first go at it 450 class. And so I was stoked on that, and just I couldn't believe it. I was 17 years old, just still in high school doing my thing, and so I kind of took 2024 off, but then I came back into it 2025, went to Hangtown, and yeah, that heat was gnarly. I missed the motos by I think like four spots or something like that. Just couldn't get a good lap in. And then Washougal this year, I made it in the show, and I was stoked with that. Just the hometown crowd and everything like that. That's a dream come true. Little me would be pretty stoked about that. I think I went 36-30, and I was pretty happy with my second moto because I pushed the whole way, and yeah, it was a good moto. So my plans this summer, I'm not really sure about. I've kind of depends on how long my money lasts me. I'm kind of shooting to be here at club through SX, and hopefully my money lasts me that far. So if I don't get any more sponsorship or anything like that, I'll probably be going back to work during the summer. But if not, my girlfriend's going to do some of the WMX rounds. And so I'd like to ideally do those WMX rounds with her and just race whatever rounds those are. So that's the ideal plan if I can make things work.
Before we hop off here today, it's been awesome having you back on the show. Of course, last time we talked was for a special edition for one of your Arena Cross main events, but before we hop off, give a shout out to some of your sponsors. I mentioned a couple of them at the top of the show, but who is helping you get to all of these races and support your program as you try to build into the professional ranks?
Yeah, I've got a lot of people helping me, and it's so many to remember. I've been really, really trying to get this down. But first off, the good Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for keeping me safe and just allowing me to do this. All the guys back at Club MX, we've been putting in the work, and it's such a fun atmosphere to be around. And all the guys are joking around. And Daniel Blair's been an awesome coach for Supercross. Ross, the gym guy, I mean, their program's legit. So yeah, and then I've got ASV Levers, Fastway Flex Bars, Fusion Graphics, Guts Racing, DDC Sprockets, EKS Goggles, Fly Racing, Carl Selling, Bayshore Concrete, Right Way Plumbing, DK Systems, S&T Racing, Rob Flagler, Skagit Power Sports, Meyer Metals. Dude, there's so many. There's a couple more. Grinders Automotive, PowerX Construction, Hamilton Construction. My mom and dad, my twin brother, he's been being my mechanic, and I love having him around. And everything my mom and dad have done for me, the way they raised me, and just all the hard work that they've put into this, and they do everything that they can for me. So can't give it up to them enough, and everyone that supports me.
Awesome to hear those shout outs. And where can people follow you on social media to see more into your program and into your life?
Yeah, so my Instagram and TikTok are Oudman480. It's Oudman 480, and that's pretty much where I post everything.
There you have it, everybody. Ashton Oudman on the Unsung Heroes. Congrats on the top 10 finish. Hope to see you back out there a little bit more this season, and thanks for the time, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Thank you once again to Ashton Oudman for his time and his interview on this week's edition. 2 interviews this week. We hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit more about not only Tristan Lane, but an SMX Next competitor in Ashton Oudman. And then mentioning a couple other guys real quick making their debuts this season. Tristan Dalton unfortunately had a back injury last year that kept him out of some of the MX combines. Tristan's first Supercross SMX Next start ended with a 13th place finish. He was also the first amateur signing in the history of the ISRT Kawasaki team, of course, Bubba Pauly's organization, and in 15th place from the Gizmo Racing Yamaha team, the number 404 of Riley Bussey, making his SMX Next debut this season. A couple notes from some racers who missed the cut for the 250 mains. Of course, I mentioned Lane Shaw earlier, one of the few Texans who were trying to make the field. Of course, Crockett Myers and Hunter Schlosser represented for the Lone Star State. Lane Shaw was somebody who missed the cut. Had a couple other Texans in there. Charles Tollison the fourth aboard his Gas. Brandon Peterson, the number 672 in there. A couple Texans making the LCQ for the first time this season, referring to Tollison and to Peterson. And unfortunately, Dylan Schwartz wasn't the only Yamaha rider who had a pretty rough get off during qualifying. Robbie Wageman went down pretty hard. The Heartbeat Hot Sauce Nano Extreme Yamaha powered by Ty Lube rider. He sat out mainly as a precaution and plans to race this weekend in Glendale, so hopefully the number 237 will be back on the line at State Farm Stadium. Now moving to the 450 division, and Christian Craig, for the first time since Anaheim 1, was the top non-factory racer. Christian could have had his first top 10 for the season. Unfortunately, he had a crash in the first moto that dropped him down to 19th, but a pair of 8th place finishes later in the night, a bit closer to the World Supercross format. And of course, there were a couple rounds, especially Gold Coast and Australia when he had a main event win, that Christian looked really good. A lot better this weekend in terms of speed and pace and fight. Signs of life for the number 28. Unfortunately, his teammate Joey Savacci took a step back, but it wasn't exactly Joey's fault. Small crash during the first race, and unfortunately, Joey now has a broken toe, so something for the number 17 to deal with. Of course, he was 5th and 6th the last 2 weeks. Hopefully, he'll be able to get this injury under control and get out there and perform well at Glendale. 14th overall, going 17, 12, 15. A little bit deeper in the field, 17th overall, and of course 17 through 22, all privateer guys. You had Justin Hill on the Team Tedder Monster Energy backed KTM. He was just shy of qualifying, less than a tenth of a second. He was away from qualifying from the field. Garrett Marchbanks just beat him out, but Justin took care of business in the LCQ, cruised to the victory. He said in his interview that the Triple Crown format is always stressful. A year ago, at the Arlington Triple Crown, Justin Hill was the fastest man in the 450 class. Almost a year later, in Houston, at a Triple Crown race, Justin Hill is first place but first in the LCQ in the 19th gate pick instead of the first. Oh, how the tables can turn around. But 17th for Justin. 18th place, Shane McElrath. Man, it's been a rough start to the year for old Shane. 17, 18, 18, 18 are his 4 finishes this year. He was top 10 in points last year, remember. Had some really nice runs. It's just not been a great year for the number 12, and he said he feels like he's trying to crawl out of a hole, and he knows he needs to start turning things around fast. Hopefully, Shane, who always seems like one of the absolute best and nicest guys in the pits, hopefully he could start stacking some momentum, getting some things moving in the right direction. His teammates have put together some solid runs at times. Christian Craig starting to get a little better, inch closer to where he belongs. But man, Shane, that's a guy who I feel like a lot of people want to see do well. So hopefully he gets to turn it around soon. 19th place for ISRT Kawasaki. Shout out Vince Freezy, man. He was nice and calm this weekend. No crazy shenanigans. He was on his best behavior. He minded his P's and Q's. 19th place. He was 19th last week as well, but he gets to keep his 3 points this weekend. Shout out to Vince. He's 4 for 4 to start the season. That's not bad in this level of the field. Vince, 4 attempts for a Kawasaki, 4 qualifications so far on his green machine. And speaking of going 4 for 4, I call him Money Mitch. Mitchell Harrison. He's frustrated that he's still having to go through these LCQs, but he's putting it in there every single time. 20th place, also probably not what he's wanting, but once again, bad main events are better than good nights and not qualifying, and he's still earning a couple points here and there. Mitchell Harrison, perfect to start the year so far. He made 13 starts a year ago. Let's see if he can improve on that this year. And he's already off to a good start, going 4 for 4. 21st place, of course, we heard from him earlier in the show. Tristan Lane, awesome to have him on and talk a little bit about his 21st place finish. Hopefully, the first of many main events for the number 711 this season. And then last place, great to see him back in the main event, but an unfortunate ending for Partzilla Blaster Power PRMX Kawasaki's Cade Clayson. His first start of the year, but it was short-lived because in a crash during the first race, Cade broke his collarbone, and not only did he break it, he broke it in 3 places, being an overachiever. Hopefully, Cade is on the mend now. He is going to try to get surgery soon, but hasn't been able to due to some of the snowy and bad weather conditions in the last few days. So, best wishes to Cade as he heals up. It looks like it'll be down to just Mitchell Harrison and Anthony Bourdon, one rider in each class for the PRMX team at Glendale. Now, moving to some news and notes from throughout the field. Cole Thompson, 1 spot shy again this week. He was 1 spot short in his season debut at Anaheim 2, 1 spot short again in Glendale. Pretty frustrating, I'm sure, for the Canadian racer, but he is getting close, and we know he has the talent capable of performing. He's got so many 250 starts, we're waiting for him to break through in the premier class. Ty Masterpool was back this weekend. I know a lot of fans were happy to see that. He was on a blacked out Yamaha, blacked out Renan gear. Ty was back out there. Unfortunately, didn't qualify, but of course, we know Ty has a lot less experience in Supercross. He has struggled with indoor races at times, and this was his first race of the year, as Justin Brayton and AC were mentioning on Race Day Live. This was essentially his Anaheim 1, while the other guys had 3 weeks of further preparation. I would expect to see Ty in the field in a main event soon in the next few weeks, but it will give him time to get this Yamaha shaken down. He hasn't been aboard a Yamaha since the 2020 season, his second pro season when he was still racing with the Stire Yamaha team. So it's going to take him a little bit to get back used to the Blue Crew after 3 years aboard a Kawasaki, whether it was a 450 or a 250. But nonetheless, great to see Ty back out there wearing number 44 this year, and the only guy out there so far this season wearing Renan gear. Speaking of being back in the field and of Texans, John Short was back in the field, repping national number 90 this year aboard his Honda. Awesome to see John back in the field. And speaking of Texans, it was Luke Dickey, I believe, making his 450 Supercross debut, a guy who's raced a good bit of arena cross and some 250 Supercross here and there the last couple years. Luke is a part of the Moto Nation Suzuki team, who you're probably pretty familiar with if you watch any of the arena cross series. They've run some AMA arena cross this year, mainly some General Tire arena cross this year. They also did a couple of the Partzilla rounds. So if you watch arena cross, chances are you've seen a Moto Nation Suzuki on your TV screen, and the number 812 Luke Dickey was in the 450 field this weekend attempting to qualify, as was fellow arena cross regular Kyle Bitterman. Awesome to see some of these names back. 450 field, a few guys getting hit with injuries, but hey, shout out to some of those guys coming back. Ty Masterpool is here. John Short is here. Luke Dickey and Kyle Bitterman making appearances. Don't know if they will be in the series full time or not. But that was your 450 class. Once again, thank you to Tristan Lane and Ashton Oudman for their time and their interviews this week. This has been the Houston edition of the Unsung Heroes. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope to see you back this time next week. I'm Trey Stire, and see you after Glendale.